From the Tennessee Valley Weather Channel, this is Forecasting Space.
Hey folks, happy Friday and welcome to Forecasting Space, the weekly show with me, your host Chase Wilson, where we take a look at all things space for you space nerds, such as interesting developments in the astronomy sector and other interesting pieces of news that have happened in the space world over the last several weeks. First things first, I want to take a look at some new developments in the new space race between who can get to the moon first, the United States or China, and China is making some strides. That's right, on August 6th, China conducted takeoff and touchdown tests of its two crewed carrying Lenyu moon lander. So this is going to be the planned lander for their 2030 moon mission, which will carry two astronauts on the rocket that they plan to launch this on. Of course, we have the SLS rocket. They have the Long March series of rockets, which goes back many decades, in fact. So they actually have heritage with this rocket. Now, back in the 60s, we launched on the Saturn V. That technology doesn't exist anymore, so we had to totally revamp ours, and we are revamping it, and we currently have a timeline faster than 2030, but of course, if delays and funding cuts continue to happen, we might not be able to make it in time. So I think calling this the new space race is an adequate term. We'll see who gets there first, and you know what? A little bit of friendly competition never hurt anybody. In other news, Hubble finally is giving us some better views of 3I Atlas, which was an interstellar visitor, that is to say, from another solar system that we discovered on July 1st. Notice in this new image, you can actually see a tail confirming dead to rights. Indeed, this is a comet. And it's kind of interesting that this is a comet as opposed to, say, an asteroid, because at least one, and possibly both of the other interstellar visitors we detected over the last 10 or so years were comets as well. And that kind of indicates that in other solar systems, much like our own, comets must have some very chaotic development processes, and they must be in hyperbolic or very significantly elliptical orbits, just like here. In fact, if we take a look at typical cometary orbits in our solar system, well, you can see that yourself, right? Of course, many comets only come back, say, every 50, 60, 70 years. It's very typical for that to happen. They hang out very, very far away in the solar system, dip in very briefly, moving very quickly, and if they're knocked around a little bit during their perigee, their closest point to their sun, it wouldn't be shocking if those go interstellar here in our solar system too. So kind of tells us that other solar system development processes are not too dissimilar from our own. Now, of course, we don't know exactly where this was from, but going 130,000 miles an hour, this was definitely not from our neighborhood. Scientists are actually currently running spectrograms on the tail to kind of suss out the development process of this comet, see what it was made of, see what kind of minerals are emitting from it. We can actually find that out through the light rays it's emitted and what colors don't exactly make it through the spectrum. Hopefully that will provide some insight into the development of other solar systems. Well, some good news and some bad news for your fans of Perseid meteor shower. Of course, it's August and you're in the northern hemisphere. That's meteor month, and we get the annual Perseid meteor shower. However, we also have the moon in our way. It's kind of a twofold thing, right? We're going to have a waning gibbous, which is about 89% illuminated here on August 11th and August 12th. So even if we get clear skies, the moon will be hovering near Saturn, not far from the Perseus constellation. This might provide a major obstacle for viewing those meteors, unfortunately. So like I said, even if we do get clear skies, that moonlight, the brightest object in the night sky, whenever it's full or waxing or waning, unfortunately might be a little bit in our way. So if you had plans for that, I want you to keep that in mind. You'll still probably see some meteors coming from that direction, but it might not be as spectacular as years past. So just a little heads up, because I know I had that in my plan book, but still, I think I'm going to go out anyways, just because it's a fun tradition for me and my family. Now here's a little something for you space and weather nerds like myself. The METOP SGA-1 satellite has been attached to the payload adapter of the Ariane 6 rocket preparing for launch. Coming up soon, this satellite will provide data on the climate variables like ozone, the air quality across the atmosphere, and greenhouse gases, helping us understand how the climate works even better. Now, this is going to launch next year. This is actually going to be a pair of satellites. This is only one of two. The METOP SGB-1 is also going to be launched on this, and this is the Ariane 6 rocket launching it no less. Now, I've been very excited about the Ariane 6 because it's the planned and so far operational successor to the Ariane 5. It hasn't had nearly as many launches, but it is pretty capable, right? We see these variants of it, and I, for one, am a big fan of it, and I'm glad it's finally seeing some use, especially in the meteorology sector. Of course, I'm a little bit biased as a meteorologist and rocket and space nerd, think there's a name for that. It's just called a nerd, period. Nevertheless, we'll be watching this very closely. This will be launching from the French Guiana in Kourou in probably spring of next year, but of course that is subject to change pending weather, pending technology updates, and things like that. So we'll watch this very closely. Europe's capabilities for meteorology will be greatly improved with this, and of course that'll benefit us all in the international meteorology community. Well, that concludes this episode of Forecasting Space. Thanks for joining me. Keep your eyes to the sky, and I'll have the latest in space next Friday.